Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the FACEIT Challenger Invitationals, and we are now in the grand finals between NIP and also SK Gaming Prime, who just took the last game. I am Richard Polscam. I'm joined alongside James Stress O'Leary, and we are super hyped to get into this game.
We are, and we're already into Champion Select as well, so let's head over to the picks and bans for our grand finals. This is a best-of-3 series between NIP and SK Prime.
Okay, so Pantheon is going to be the first ban out, followed by Caston, and it's interesting, both of the Pantheons we've seen in this tournament actually haven't done too well, but it has warranted a ban in this game.
Yeah, they haven't done amazingly well, but we've seen Pantheon coming back into the meta. Well, into the meta, actually, as Pantheon hasn't been in the meta for quite a while. Apart from in the mid lane, he saw a brief stint as a counter to Ari, but banned out from this game won't be available. So, Thresh joins the banned champions lists. Who will be the next? I have to feel it'll be Kale, alongside... We've seen a lot of Yasuo bans as well.
We have, and again, Yasuo hasn't performed all that well as well. Seems like all the banned champions onto the ones that kind of like, not necessarily the oddball picks, but the picks who are definitely different to what we're usually used to. The problem with Yasuo at the moment is just he's quite difficult to use. He's very strong in lane, but outside of that, players start to crumble.
Yeah, it's something that we've seen certain players excelling on Yasuo. You look at a player like Chuyu, who really is known for his Yasuo, so definitely worth banning it out there. But the champion's strengths, I think, outweigh the risk for leaving it open. So I think banning Yasuo as the final ban here for NIP is a good play.
So the last ban out was that Yasuo from the team of Ninjas in Pyjamas. Let's see exactly what the last ban champion will be as we jump into the picks. Not sure what they're going to jump for, because NIP...
Elise has been the typical last ban.
Okay, it's not going to be Elise, it's going to be Vi.
And Elise is the first pick, so...
Okay.
Yeah.
At least it was a jungler on both accounts.
Well, I'll at least be a little bit happy by the fact that Elise was the instant first lock-in. Yeah. So, that's typically why Elise is banned, because otherwise, straight away...
Yeah, they wanted that pick. It was like, Vi, great, Elise, and there's very little you can pick into Elise and just be like, okay, I can fight this. Kha'Zix is one of those, and Kha'Zix is still available for these two teams. Something we've seen played by, in fact, both of these guys. So, Exla in the mid lane can run that Kha'Zix. We've also seen Amin as well run that Kha'Zix. Could have gone either of these guys.
Now, I feel like SK will go for the Gragas again here. We saw them pick Gragas for the jungle twice in a row by picking him up very early. It also gives the opportunity for Exile to play Gragas in the middle lane. It's a very ambiguous pick. I wouldn't be surprised to see Gragas locked in here. Looks like they're thinking of Lulu again after a very solid game on Lulu.
Yeah, we saw Lulu picked before the AD carry because it doesn't really matter what you pick for Lulu, it's going to work. But she preferably likes to be with harder engage AD carries so you can just get in range, use the wild growth. It doesn't matter too much because Lulu can perform exactly the same job. Rexon's going to be the first pickup from this team, and he's going to be placed in the top lane, which, again, is one of those picks who will perform well against a lot of top lanes. Okay, might be outscaled by someone like Rengar or someone like Mundo, but if you win the early game and keep on top of that advantage, then it won't matter too much.
Yeah, Renekton has just been incredibly solid this weekend and has come back into the meta. Renekton is a champion that is difficult to adjust with any meta changes because of how good he is in lane. And just how consistent he can get ahead and then become a really tanky threat into the mid-game team fights. And it's difficult to pick anything that's particularly crushing against him, apart from, when Shyvana was pretty strong.
Yeah.
But in the current meta right now, Renekton is a very solid pick.
For sure. So, the hover over Annie and also the... That's not a LeBlanc. It's a Caitlyn.
It's a Caitlyn.
But definitely, Caitlyn and Annie is a very difficult lane to play against. Zoning from both of these champions, in fact, makes it very difficult to just get near. And because they know that they're going to go for a poking lane with Lulu, then let's just go for the same thing, but better. Yeah,
and Caitlyn, of course, is in her own right consistent. All of the champions that have been picked up so far are highly consistent champions, not only in the laning phase, but in team fights as well. So we'll see where they decide to go with this. SK have locked in the Jinx pick as well. So going to get that reset mechanic. Will we see any other reset champions going alongside that? Kha'Zix is still available.
Possible. It's usually the team of NIP who go for those reset champions, but often when we see reset champions, we see big damage assassins as well. And there's the hover over Kha'Zix, and we saw this last round. It's going to be locked in. and 90% chance it's going to be on Exeter, but we've seen lots of swap-ups after seeing the mid lanes go in.
Yeah, it could still be jungle at this point. We haven't seen a jungler out of SK Prime, so they're still very ambiguous, and having the last pick available for mid really allows them to choose, do they want that Kha'Zix in mid? And that's a LeBlanc locked in, so they're saying we don't mind what you do here with the Kha'Zix. We're going to play LeBlanc into whoever you play in mid.
Very, very confident. Mundo is going to be probably the follow-up, and this is basically what we see. Renekton comes out, pick up the Mundo. It's probably the easiest lock-in of all time when it comes into the recent Challenger games.
Now, I kind of feel like this LeBlanc is saying that we don't want you to pick Gragas, and LeBlanc should do well against Gragas. It hasn't worked out every time. We've had a couple of matches where it's gone in favor of the Gragas, but I think this is more saying that we want you, if you want Gragas, to pick that up into a bad matchup. But we have seen SK Prime running Gragas in the jungle with Kha'Zix in the middle lane. And I'm not too sure how the lane for LeBlanc against Kha'Zix works, but LeBlanc typically struggles against AD champions in that middle lane. So you have to wonder that they're kind of banking on that Kha'Zix being in the jungle.
She does, but at the same time, it might be harder for Kha'Zix to get in range of LeBlanc. And the leap range is actually very limited until you upgrade it, and you're usually not going for the first evolution first in leap unless you're in the jungle. So
a jungle Kha'Zix would, and it looks like we have a jungle Kha'Zix. As Orianna is the last pickup. I think Orianna is a decent matchup here against LeBlanc. I mean, Orianna can stay far enough away that LeBlanc really just isn't a problem. Use the ball to zone out areas against LeBlanc, and the engage range is far too much for one distortion.
Yeah, in that lane by itself, unless there's jungler intervention, nothing really happens because Orianna can farm and she just keeps her at range, and LeBlanc just has to also play the farming game. That's actually why several times we've just seen LeBlanc in a difficult game just go for Fiends and Holy Grail and just farm out with distortions.
Yeah, that's something that we have seen a number of times already this weekend. And these team comps are very similar to what we've seen all weekend from a lot of the teams. As we saw the champion pool start to expand in LCS. There is somewhat of a contraction happening once again as a couple of champions are finding their way out of the meta as a few new ones join. And it's just one of these things that in this game, pretty much everything's consistent. Even Kha'Zix now has become somewhat consistent in the jungle by the way that he gets more gold.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's take a look at some of the other lanes. Focusing a lot on the junglers and a lot on the mid lane. The bot lane is going to be that Jinx and Lulu, and didn't speak about that too much after the Caitlyn and Annie lock in. So Jinx is going to be able to trade against that, but they won't be able to get in range to trade.
Yeah, that's one of the difficulties. Is if you can't get in range, then it's pretty difficult to do that against the Caitlyn lane. And as soon as they hit level 6, there is going to be good engage out of Caitlyn and Annie, of course, with the flash tibbers available. But remember the rampant growth, wild growth, out of Lulu. Clearly, I've been playing too much Magic the Gathering, but that's a different story. Yeah, the ultimate out of Lulu will be enough to allow one of the members to survive through the initial engagement. We'll see whether that's enough to allow them to disengage.
So now in the top lane, again, one of the most common, consistent matchups that you can always bet on happening is going to be the Renekton and the Mundo. Renekton will have that early advantage, and from previous games, Renekton sometimes, after picking up a kill, will just stay on top of Mundo, so he never really hits that stage. But Mundo naturally should outscale Renekton in top lane.
Yeah, should. We've seen a couple of players, Vizicachi, actually managed to offset that and got a good lead in the beginning. But all of this remains to be seen as we head into the game. Of course, we are live here at the FACEIT studio in Milan, Italy for the FACEIT Challenger Invitational. And now, if you are just joining us for our grand finals, there's a lot that's gone on this weekend, and you've missed a lot of League of Legends action. Hopefully you like the highlights that we put on before this game, because you've caught up with that. But there's a lot of information that's still to be given out. For instance, DL Compare are doing a giveaway this weekend. It's funny how this keeps
always
lining
with
up.
The timing.
I know. They're doing a giveaway this weekend. If you should be watching our Twitch page, I would assume. So make sure you click the link that is there from DL Compare. Fill out the little form there, and DL Compare will be giving away some games this weekend. So make sure you click that link and fill out the form.
I believe Moobot is throwing that down in chat as well if you can't quite find it. So every now and again, that'll be thrown down, and you just need to click on that link, fill in the form, and there's some great games up for grabs. So also, let's jump onto the FACEIT platform. So if you don't know anything about FACEIT at all, then, well, we're going to describe exactly what it is.
Where have you been all weekend if you don't know anything
just tuned
at all?
in, I guess,
mean,
but
yeah, if you have just tuned in. FACEIT is a web platform for competitive tournaments and gaming at all skill levels. So if you're bronze, challenger, anywhere in between, even if you're paper ranked, I think.
Yeah.
I'm not sure whether it works
I'm not
if you're paper
sure,
rank.
but,
We'll see.
You can probably enter something.
You could just like pretend to be bronze. It's fine.
Yeah.
We know every unranked player is a secret challenger player, right?
Yeah, Challenger 27.
Yeah, but if you are a League of Legends player or Counter-Strike or Quake, make sure you are signing up for the FACEIT platform. There's even a promo code this weekend for FACEIT Premium membership for everybody that's tuning in. That'll give you a month's free premium membership on the FACEIT platform where you can earn points, FACEIT points, to redeem for some pretty awesome prizes on the FACEIT store.
There's all sorts of things in that shop. There's headsets, mechanical keyboards, and the grand prize, as we said many times over this weekend, if you've been watching all FACEIT the car, which is the grand prize for 5 million FACEIT points. But I think it's worth it.
I think
it's a car for playing video games. I mean, can't really argue with that.
Yeah, you can't argue with that. And I mean, a car isn't even on the line for our finals. And our finals is loading in, as you can see behind us. The finals is NIP versus SK Gaming Prime. And as you said previously, those are two organizations that could be an LCS matchup of NIP going up against SK Gaming Prime. And time will tell whether that will be a summer split matchup. But for now, we get the pleasure of having them in the challenger rankings in Europe. And we are onto the Rift for game number 1 here for the grand finals in the FACEIT Challenger Invitational.
Just by being in the finals, these guys have secured themselves prize money. And the first prize will be the 1,000 euros, followed by 500 euros. So they're going to go home with at least something in this game. But onto the Rift. These guys, let's see if they fan out. But so much we haven't seen too much aggression this tournament, Stress. Sometimes we've seen a small invade, but hasn't been too bloodthirsty. Most of the time, these guys are just going to see what they can do in terms of keeping themselves, safe without that vision being placed
keeping
out.
themselves alive in the early game.
Which is good, and also keeping themselves with a pause.
That's one way of extending your life for a while.
It is.
It doesn't really count in-game, but you know, in real time, you're able to stay alive for quite a bit longer in a pause.
You can.
Up to 30 minutes, actually.
So we're not actually sure what's happening.
Well, we're in the grand finals. I think we know that much is happening.
We haven't had a pause for a while, actually. So I think, we're now catching up on those pauses.
I hope we're not going to get just a backlog of pauses.
Yeah,
but,
it's been pretty good this tournament.
Yeah, we've not had too many, but hopefully we haven't jinxed that by the fact that we're going into this game with a pause. But
and
nevertheless, and jinx. I was thinking of a joke there, but that one seemed too easy. I didn't want to.
I know.
I didn't want to just take the easy joke. It's sometimes it's just not worth it. But no, we are awaiting our players, and we will figure out what is going on with these guys. Probably just a connection issue. One of them needs to reconnect to the lobby. Yeah. Hopefully we'll see that happen fairly shortly. But I'm looking forward to this game. This grand finals series here. Can't wait.
It'd be a bit strange to go into the finals after seeing the entire tournament being like, I've been hyped about all the games apart from this one after seeing the two strongest teams go head-to-head. But Unicorns of Love, they took down some big teams, and SK just beat them a couple minutes ago to go into the finals. Now we are back on into the game.
Yeah, there have been quite a few big upsets and some smaller upsets as well. I mean, SK Gaming Prime, the former organization of Ocelot, would end up defeating them 2 games. I believe that was 2-0 last night. That was a little bit later in the day yesterday. We casted many a game this weekend.
Yeah, it was less of an upset in the sense that people didn't think it was going to happen, because they have actually taken down Ocelot's team before, but it was upset in the sense that many Ocelot fans will be upset.
That is very true. That is very true indeed. However, this game, SK Prime face up against Ninjas in Pyjamas. We'll see which of these teams can win out the first game and put themselves 1 game away from the grand prize.
So these guys aren't going to do too much in the early game, but this is a Kha'Zix in the jungle right now.
It is.
And we saw Axel in the mid lane actually rock that one out onto the Rift and did very well, but he actually swapped it on up. And that's going to be Orianna facing down LeBlanc, which is still a good matchup. In fact, even Kha'Zix in the mid lane will probably do suitably well.
So one of the things about Kha'Zix jungle is you get less reliable gold than you would if Kha'Zix was in the mid lane. Obviously, having the minions appear every 30 seconds into lane is a good way of getting money for a mid lane Kha'Zix. However, Kha'Zix in the jungle has so much more kill potential in the current meta. The ability to be in different lanes than just against mid laners, who typically are very mobile, very consistent, very safe to farm. The ability to jump into a bottom skirmish, or even, it's not often that you find a top laner, but it's typically you'll find a jungler around the top area of the map, and you can pick up a kill there. That added potential for gold can actually allow you to snowball quite handily.
It can, and there's no one else who early game really need those kills, so they can definitely just give them to Kha'Zix if they're available. So that's what they're going to jump for. But the bot lane aggression might be what we're seeing here. Kha'Zix is just going for the standard route. He's going to go for those wolves over those wraiths and then go into that blue buff. So both of these junglers actually going to find themselves in the bottom half of Summoner's Rift, and we'll see exactly where they go.
Yeah, we've actually seen quite a heavy influence on mid lane, which is not typical of the current meta. It's something that we're seeing more and more as games go on, as bottom lanes are, you know, skirmishing pretty hard between themselves. So it's not quite awaiting jungler presence, but we're seeing a lot of jungler emphasis on the middle lane as junglers rotate after their first rotation. And it's something that is to be expected now in the mid lane. You have to be careful of a jungler like Kha'Zix appearing in lane, or a jungler like Elise. So overall, across the board, all lanes have to be careful.
They do, and because they are so aggressive, sometimes it just ends up cancelling each other out. So neither of them actually go for those ganks. Because if Elise is there first and Kha'Zix comes in, then he will be killed. But at the same time, if they go toe-to-toe in the early game, I feel like Kha'Zix will probably lose against Elise. But after the first couple levels, as soon as he can clear out those spiderlings and get that isolation damage from his Taste Their Fear, then he'll do more damage.
Kha'Zix is already backed, had to get that Spirit Stone. It'll keep him a little bit safer in his jungle. And looks like Elise is going for a gank path. I believe has avoided the ward as well. So this is a good path.
He's going to come around the side, and Sigil Silence lands into the full-on Sands with that distortion. There's the flash in to the cocoon from Aaron, and that's first blood picked up by LeBlanc.
A very patient gank out by Armin. They knew exactly where the ward was because Exile moved across to ward in plain sight. And that was really, really well played.
If he lands a stun in bot lane, it's not going to result in a kill. Trap went down, but it didn't arm in time.
They waited for the stun as well in that middle lane before flash cocooning. Managed to pick it up. And I thought you were talking about Armin for a second.
Yeah, I was actually going to say that. And it was a missed opportunity for a pun. Armin time.
It's Armin time, but...
I want him to play Jinx at some point, just so I can say Armin time. For those flame chompers.
I don't think Jinx jungle is the greatest of competitive choices.
Got some AoE in there. If you wait for the flame chompers to explode, they will damage the minions. You just have to stand there for 10 seconds.
Is that your criteria for being a good jungle champion?
I'm gonna try it.
You got AoE. It's okay. You can do this.
Yeah. Even in bronze, I can still enter the FACEIT tournament, so yeah, I'm good to go. I'll be the best Jinx jungle there ever was, and the only Jinx jungle.
Jinx is actually in a little bit of trouble. There's a lot of harass being put down in that bottom lane, and Svanillan has to be careful. Cannot take too much early game harass, because the faster that Mithy hits 6, the faster this lane explodes in favor of ninjas in pajamas.
And it's not doing too much exploding at the moment. It's doing a lot of farming. Yeah, good for agriculture.
Explosions aren't good for agriculture.
No, they're not. But Jinx is definitely a fan of them, as the minions are heading towards her. Should be evening up some of this farm, but it's definitely been a rough lane. More rough than you'd usually expect. But Nuketook aggresses on to Exeler. It's not really been able to keep Nuketook at range as much as you would expect from Orianna.
Yeah, he's playing the lane a little bit differently. You can see Orianna's fairly pushed up in amongst her own minion waves here. And it's kind of allowing Nuketook to go aggressive.
He might just pick up this kill. Auto attack lands and the tether just finishes. And he picks up that kill.
That's far too far forward in the Orianna matchup against LeBlanc. You cannot allow her to do that. You're already up in CS in that lane, but now you're down 2 kills to 0. And this is a LeBlanc that will start to scale.
You cannot start letting LeBlanc snowball, and this might be the first time in the tournament and it's actually happened from laning phase. Yeah. Usually it falls behind and then catches back up, but LeBlanc is in very good shape. 2-0 is actually reflecting the entire scoreline of the entire game, but we'll be picking up the Chalice, and it's a little bit interesting. He's picked up the 2 kills, and it's a perfect opportunity to pick up like a Death Eyes Grasp or an extra bit of damage, but instead goes for the kind of more conservative builds of the Fiends.
Once again, this top lane playing out as the Renekton Mundo matchup would be expected to. Renekton with a very slight lead to begin the game, but that will start to tail off as this game continues. Now, as the game continues, NIP, close to hitting 6, have landed the stun.
And Miffy is very close to killing them, but Miffy hasn't quite hit the Tibbers just yet, and that's when they'll signal their engage, because not only will give them a very reliable stun, but very reliable damage, and Miffy has activated the Molten Shield, getting his way to that Pyromania passive with that stun, and he's gearing up for that level 6 engage.
Has to get to level 6 though. He's a good few minions away from it, will place up the wards, and again, this is very characteristic of what we're seeing from NIP is, you know, quite a slow opening to the game, not being aggressive when they don't have to be aggressive. Now, I kind of feel like NukeDuck has been given 2 kills in mid, which sounds a little bit bad, but up in the top lane.
Perry has gone for this gank, and Zoroze would just flash out, attempts the juke, but there's the flash after. Mozilla takes a lot of damage, but it's not going to be able to secure that kill. So that brings the total to 2-1.
Yeah, Zoro just couldn't survive under the turret. Didn't have sadism available because it was already ticking, and that wasn't enough regen there, as Mozilla used the Ignite to make sure that sadism didn't do too much.
Yeah, and that's good for 2 reasons, because Renekton, he's slightly ahead of the lane, which is great, because he will be able to stay on top of Mundo, and also, that's 1 kill going to Perry, and we've said before, we just need a couple kills on that Kha'Zix to get him rolling into this game, and, well, there's one of them.
Also, Mundo couldn't catch up with the CS difference by teleporting to lane because they need the teleport available in case this happens. And NIP will be going for the Dragon. They'll be able to take this before any reaction from SK, and with Dragon off the table and Mundo being behind, Renekton gets back to lane at the same time. Mundo benefits nothing from that. Teleport's still available, though, for any more skirmishes.
It is, and he'll be able to teleport into a fight, but it wasn't used for Dragon, and it wasn't used to catch up and farm. So at the moment, it's kind of just not doing anything, and the longer he leaves it, then the longer it's going to take before it goes back on cooldown and then be available for the next Dragon, because he needs to kind of have that in sync. Because if he leaves it for too long and it gets past that threshold of when the Dragon will spawn past his teleport, then he's kind of just wasted the opportunity.
Mithy is 6, as is Freeze. 6, ironically, isn't 6 yet.
Yeah.
So, and doesn't have the Lulu ultimate available. So, should they choose to engage, they take a lot of burst damage out. There's the Tibbers.
It goes down into the Piltover. They don't quite get the lockup, but Miffy has been hit by the Flame Chompers. At least Tibbers is on the field. At least he can be a friend to Annie for the next couple of minutes.
But here comes Kha'Zix.
He is looking for this gank, finding the right opportunity. There's the ace in the hole coming through. Will be blocked out. Kha'Zix jumps over the wall and will be looking for this gank. Doesn't have the leap, but he does have a slowdown from his passive. Miffy doesn't quite get the stun off. He's trying desperately to get Pyromania, but Freeze should be taken out. There's a super mega Death Rocket. Takes down 1. Flame Chompers will arm in time. And now Zoro off to the side. He has used that teleport. It's quite tanky. He might just go back into this fight. 1 versus 3. Civilian is very, very low. The barrier has also been used, and LeBlanc comes back into this trade. Meanwhile, top lane, they are just trading blows, but NukeDuck is here to try and secure a kill. See how much he wants to take in terms of damage, and Zoro, you can't recall that.
That was a little bit too deep for NukeDuck to want to go there. Mozilla's caught out in the top, but Armin should be able to deal... Sorry, Mozilla should be able to get out away from Armin there, and that bottom lane fight was a bit of a product of Caitlyn, Annie being too aggressive in that lane. They'd already got the good trade, were already way ahead in CS, and they've given away some of that lead by allowing 2 kills to go onto Jinx, and that's fine for this point in the game if you're SK Prime. The fact that Jinx got both of those kills is going to allow her to scale pretty well. Kha'Zix already has a kill from earlier, so already itemizing on the right members of the team.
Those kills haven't put Jinx ahead, though. That's just evened up the lane. And I think that's important because even though it's even, okay, they might be able to aggress onto that lane, but Freeze is quite still capable of winning that trade if they go for it, because that has only just brought them on par in terms of items.
Yeah, although the CS difference can be caught up fairly easily depending on how this lane continues to play out. I mean, there's the engage in mid.
Miffy flashes forwards, gets the stun, and indeed the damage. NukeDuck's Ignite wasn't enough to finish that one off.
Now they're going to look to take down this tower. They should be able to get it in the middle lane. However, this is giving a little bit of free farm over to Jinx. Provided they take the turret, that's fine. They can definitely give that farm over to Jinx. It just depends on how they react, and don't leave her to farm for too long on her own. You can see the rotation is already coming from NukeDuck and Mythy, and they've left Freeze in the middle lane alone.
Let's see if Ammon can land that cocoon. It will be sidestepped by 6. As that bot lane from NIP have returned, but Perry is sitting in the bush as well. Caitlyn is still in the mid lane and also heading down to the bot. Let's see if someone gets caught in rotation or they go for this fight. They're going to try and reclaim this turret.
They're going to try and reclaim it. Caitlyn was coming in at a weird angle. Mythy has a stun charge.
Perry goes for the engage and will be instantly deleted by Nuke and the venomous bite from Ammon. Now, if the repel comes forwards, they do pick up that tower. Let's see if they can take down Jinx as well. Has been sped up. The Whimsy is on. And a great... The Glitter Lance comes across, but another great cocoon in response will result in another kill for LeBlanc.
4-0-1 on LeBlanc is not a good place to be if you're SK Prime. 5-3 up in this game are NIP, and they've answered the that turret that SK Prime took earlier with 2 turrets of their own and a good set of team fights. Dragon is up in just over a minute and a half, and NIP are starting to pick the pace of this game up, and it's not something we've seen out of NIP too much this tournament. NIP have played a slower game, but with 4 kills on Nuke already, this could end up going pretty quickly for NIP.
And you can see that SK Prime are trying to slow down the game because they realize LeBlanc is going to be the main source of damage. Everyone get Magic Goose and get it right now because the Merc Treads are being picked up by Exeler, which is very early and not something you always see. Anna and a Negatron Cloak being picked up in the top lane by Renekton.
Yeah, and it looks like Nuke just wants to fight as much as possible here, and if they do continue to take these skirmishes, SK Gaming will lose objectives off the back of it. We've got Dragon up in 1 minute. If Nuke can pick somebody off, which with a finished Athene's Unholy Grail and Sorcerer's Shoes, he should be able to do, that is an uncontestable Dragon, provided they get that pick off.
5-3, and we do have the small advantage to NIP, but it is concentrated onto Nuke. The tether doesn't complete because Orianna arrives, but may be able to stick around for a little bit longer, but still quite a lot of damage.
That's enough for Perry now to know he cannot all-in LeBlanc. There's no way he can fight versus that damage. Even LeBlanc should sustain through that. Nuke roaming again.
Well, good luck, Mozilla, because I don't think you're getting out of this. Armin misses the cocoon, but as long as LeBlanc is in range, he is a dead crocodile. He will be flashing out. The repel will follow, and Mozilla tries his best to turn it around. Just a surprising amount of damage to Ammon, but it's not quite going to be enough. Okay, there we go.
Yeah, Ammon's going to have to recall here, so they can't immediately go for the dragon, but the pick is good. Mythy lands a stun.
Tibbers comes down. LeBlanc has rotated from top lane, trying to get in range. Wonderstalk comes down. Will he use the second? He will, but it will be used on the minions.
And every time Nuke appears in a lane or at any point in the map where a member of SK Prime are, it forces out either flashes or disengages, escapes, just big cooldowns that SK are going to need to fight the rest of this. You can look at the vision control out from NIP already. Look at the littering of wards in the mid and lower side of the SK Prime jungle. That tells the story. There's no way that SK can approach that dragon without NIP knowing.
Completely peppered in wards. And now Exeler just sitting in the mid lane. That is definitely within range of a single combo of LeBlanc to take him down. Even full HP at this stage is in full range of being killed by LeBlanc, as we saw before from Perry as he was caught and his Wraiths.
Here it goes
and now
again.
he's caught again. Level 11 versus level 9. There's one part of the combo, and LeBlanc doesn't actually choose to follow up.
Yeah, until you see exactly where every member of SK Prime is, getting damage is actually enough for Nuke here. They're going to follow up.
Or they could just kill Mozilla instead with the combo. Nuke will finish that up with Distortion. Kind of just hung around and made sure he picked that up by using that combo.
Yeah, they're getting enough damage at least onto the members that would need to be there defensively. 6 is going to not fall to Armin as the ultimate got used. But again, that's another big cooldown. NIP keep forcing defensive abilities out of SK at times when they really won't want to use them.
Yeah. 0-0 following behind this turret, piling as hard as possible, but Miffy places down the offensive wall just to see exactly where the top lane is hanging out, but is currently at spawn because he did just jump out of the death chamber, and we'll see how fast they can take the top turret. Mundo and Annie are not known for their pushing potential, unless you throw down Tibbers and have like a third person.
I think that would be a little misuse of Tibbers.
They would, but we'll take it down a little bit faster. So, Mozilla heads up into the top lane, and we'll just carry on farming. Miffy doesn't choose to stay around, despite Armin running around from the side. But again, they didn't quite have the vision of everyone they want, and there's a mid lane push.
Yeah, SK Prime have rotated around to the mid lane, and while Nuke is powerful and could easily 1v1 any of these champions, he cannot 4v1. That's pretty...
It's a big ask.
That's pretty impossible for LeBlanc.
Not at the same time, but over time he will be able to pick off one person. Distortion comes down, Ace in the hole comes across. Armin is going to try his best to finish this one. It's not going to happen. Go back to Spider form.
All they needed to do there was land the damage, and that's what they've done. That is going to deter the push for a little bit longer, allows Zoro to cross over towards that middle lane, and it means they can hold the turret if SK Prime decide to push. The other option SK Prime have is to split back up, and we've already seen what NIP can do when SK Prime aren't together, so it looks like that game plan is starting to work here for NIP. There's the Void Staff completed on LeBlanc. That's a massive amount of damage that she's going to be doing now. It
is, and actually opted for the Void Staff over like an offensive item, because usually after the Fiend you'll see like a Death Cap to increase the AP you've already gotten from a Fiend, or you'll go for something like a Deathfire Grasp. But it's actually opted for the Void Staff because it actually will probably result in more damage because everyone's built Magic Resist. Yeah, I mean, forcing out Magic Resist this early, if you can shred that away, is a significant feat here. Dragon's still not available for a while longer in this game, but NIP pretty much have free reign to roam down towards this bottom side of the map. They aren't quite sure what to do right now, actually. It looks like this game has accelerated a little bit quicker than they were expecting it to. They had the timer on blue, which is why they were hanging around, but I don't think that was in that bush either. Sad times. That's not even a difficult bush to place a ward into. I mean, like the Tri bush, we've seen many failures, and you can understand why. Sometimes it even looks like it's in the bush. But again, NIP now need to group up, or they are deciding to group up. They've caught Civilian. Civilian gets right down, but that shield from Exa is actually quite significant. There is no magic resist currently, but they have kept that AD carry alive. Either way, NIP are quite happy to roam in the opposing jungle. Yeah, and they're so composed right now, looking for the picks from LeBlanc. She's so mobile and is able to just pick off anybody that she finds 1v1. Now they've rotated top. Mozilla looks to try and stop that push, but Freeze is actually down in the middle lane on his own. LeBlanc is kind of just hanging in the wings, and Nuke Duck is making it difficult for anyone to go from lane to lane. Exler, do not go that way. He actually places down the ward and dies. Tibbers was a little bit overkill there. Just going to say it. I mean, that was a kill that definitely was going to Nuke Duck. There was no way of Orianna getting out. So the big engage tool here for NIP is going to be down. However, they are going to trade that for objectives anyway, as this turret will fall. Can they get any more from that? Miffy going to try and land that stun onto Civilian, but it's going to quite happen. And clearing out this wave. They had some pretty significant wave play between the Glitter Lance and also those rockets from Mr. Fishbones. Now, NIP rotate down towards the bottom lane. You're seeing this 4-and-1 split, which is very common when you have a Dr. Mundo with teleport. Mundo is able to take 1 or 2 members of your opponents to one lane in the map, and with teleport available, can cross over to be able to fight around objectives. NIP take half of the health of this tower with the first push. We'll see whether they can do the same on the other, which would obviously result in the tower falling, but Zoro and Mozilla are trading. Top lane is still very even. Ignite has come down, cutting the extra regeneration from Sedism. Now in the bot lane, Amin continuously landing those cocoons, and if they are just 1 centimeter or 1 teemo away from that turret, they will be taken down instantly by LeBlanc if they can get in range. Yeah, LeBlanc will remove anybody she sees fit from this map. 15 seconds on the dragon, and that'll be a difficult dragon to fight for SK Prime, because as soon as they come forward, LeBlanc will remove one of them. Yeah, and they don't even have the luxury of having someone like Caitlyn who can use Ace in the Hole on her and weaken her to the point where she can't assassinate someone. They just don't have that. In fact, they have the Caitlyn. So that's going to be a dragon going down, and even more gold and a bigger advantage heading to NIP's direction.
Yeah, and for people that maybe weren't tuning in yesterday, as LeBlanc tries to go aggressive again, for one of the points that I think it was Moops made from Super Hot Crew in the interview they had in LCS was when playing Caitlyn against a LeBlanc, you can use Ace in the Hole to chunk LeBlanc from a far distance before team fight so she can never engage. In this situation, Caitlyn is on the same side as LeBlanc, and that's not a possible option, so it's difficult to get damage onto LeBlanc before these team fights.
There's no reliable way of doing it. I mean, you can throw down the Super Mega Death Rocket, but when you're full HP, it's not an execute. It's just, it would just kind of tag LeBlanc and make it very angry. But Freeze will be picking up the red buff and just everyone getting all of the advantages they can before making some significant push in. But they've kind of hit a brick wall in the sense that they aren't able to take these buffs, and they're not quite at the stage where they want to pressure Baron, and they're also not at the stage where they can take any more turrets.
Well, LeBlanc right now at 6-0-2 has a needlessly large rod, so will continue to blow people up pretty well. It's just down to the rest of NIP getting gold here to make sure that they can fight the team fights under turrets. Caitlyn has that Last Whisper alongside the Bloodthirster as well, so has a significant amount of damage, but has opted for the Avarice Blade first to make sure her gold income is staying up. I mean, she's up in CS over Jinx already. Of course, Avarice Blade will be going towards Static Shiv. That's a common item, but it's normally the decision of going Avarice Blade first over Zeal first. And you go Avarice Blade first if you're not getting a lot of kills and need the extra gold rather than that extra attack speed and extra movement.
And they're running a LeBlanc, so they want the kills to be onto her so that she just keeps deleting people. So, Avarice Blade makes sense right here. To increase that gold income, Ping goes onto the bot tower, and we'll see if they can take that down before reaction from SK is a thing. But looks like that is going to be the case, and the bot tower is going to be falling. There we go. And Zoro and Mozilla, well, they're just doing the same thing.
Yep, continuing to fight things out up in the top lane. And meanwhile, in the bottom, it looks like NIP are splitting up a little bit. And Sadism has been popped by Zoro, so it sounds like the call has been made for him to leave the top lane for a little while. Renekton follows suit and heads out of lane. But no big initiation out of either of these teams yet. And I have to feel that if SK Prime can get rid of LeBlanc early in these fights, they have a good chance of fighting this.
Next blue buff is going to fall, and they've taken a good 2 blue buffs right now. That's going to be going down, and Mozilla heads back into the top lane, but Mundo has done his job. He's already brought it down to half HP. This is kind of situation that NIP are in. They are definitely sieging, but until they can remove one person and one component from that SK lineup, they're not really going to be able to do too much.
The thing is, NIP didn't do too much between the blues, but Mozilla is caught.
Sivas comes down, and the stun Ace in the hole comes across. We'll see if they can get that pick. LeBlanc comes in from the side. Distortion comes out twice. Doesn't jump on to Mozilla, but that will result in the top turret, and we need to make sure they don't get caught. As they retreat, Six gets deleted, so will Exeler. In fact, he's still alive. The ultimate comes down. Super Mega Death Rocket at point blank range. Takes down 0-0. And now everyone else is very, very squishy. But so is SK. The tether is landing. The Pillover comes across, but he actually gets a regeneration and lifesteal from those minions. Mozilla has jumped back in. Nuke Duck is still alive. That's the clean ace. 2 members drop from NIP.
Yeah, 5 for 2 overall in that fight, and Nuke Duck and Freeze just outputting damage on the targets that they needed to at the right time. Nuke Duck saving his cooldowns for when they could instantly burst somebody down, and Nuke Duck picked up a double. I believe it was a triple. No, it was the other way around. Nuke Duck picked up a triple. It was a double for Caitlyn, and that is a pretty difficult thing to come back from here. And it looks like they don't even want to attempt to come back from it, as NIP pick up game number 1 of our grand finals.
Oh, double explosion. Nice. Outstanding. So that was the first game of this best finals. It's a best-of-3 series. So, again, they just need to win the next game to stay in this one, because SK not looking too great in this first game.
Yeah, and Nuke Duck had an amazing game. I mean, Nuke Duck is a player that we normally say will give kills away to the rest of his members of the team, but in that game, actually ended up, I believe it was 9-0-3 that Nuke Duck would end up, and that's impressive. That's how LeBlanc should work in theory, because normally in this weekend, we've seen LeBlanc a little bit lackluster, and I'm a little bit happier to see a LeBlanc actually snowballing like LeBlanc should.
A textbook performance, I think we can say, from Nuke Duck, and He knows when to give kills and he knows when to take all of them in this lane that we in this game that we just saw. So we are going to move into the second game very shortly. But anything else to add, Stress?
I believe we'll be back in just a couple of minutes with game number 2 of our grand finals here from the FACEIT Challenger Invitational, sponsored by Overwolf and DL Company.